All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. How you doing tonight? Let us know if we're coming in loud and clear. Welcome to another Inhumanoids Live. I'm your host, Barton Nunnelly. As always, your co-host, my beautiful wife, Latisha.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to see you guys. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. Got a great guest, a really, really nice guy. Hope everyone's been doing well. I know it's been a really hard week for a lot of people. So prayers to everyone that's going through all this remnants of the hurricane Helene. She was really something else. So before we get started, you want to go ahead and do the prayer list, baby?
Okay, so as Bart already said, prayers for the hurricane victims, everybody, their families. Phil Stern, Tyler Oliver, many more. There were so many I couldn't write that asked for prayers for them.
Yes.
So just overall prayers for the hurricane victims, please, y'all. Trey Hood, Cowboy 4572's wife Cindy, Sherry Griffey, Angie Higgins and her friend Mary, Lisa Odom Ward's best friend Mary, Mark and Becca Green, Tracy Halderman, prayers for Jerusalem, DJ Tyler's aunt and sis and husband, Harley Owens and family and friends. We're hoping Harley's okay. He was kind of had to evacuate.
Yeah.
So
he's okay, but
he's okay,
it's displaced right now.
Right.
And prayers for you too, Patricia Gambino Harrington.
Right.
Good to hear from you.
Sebastian, aka Rat Boy, Gina Cook's grandson, he has strep throat. Getting ready to have tonsils taken out, probably, I would imagine. Misty Shelton, Holly Mangum is asking for prayers for all the linemen that are working so hard to get power restored. Jeff Boyle's dad is getting pretty bad, so he's asking for prayers that he can go and
Transition peacefully.
Thank you. Chester's wife, Paula, Triacle's 10 dad got some pretty bad news today. Leukemia, right? Or
I think she said that.
Leukemia.
Yes, prayers for
prayers
your dad, Trickle.
Prayers for our dad. It's bad news. I hate to hear that. Patricia Harrington and her friend Michelle Milner and Kyle Burkdahl for peace and happiness. Brother Heck, Catherine and Roger Gay for the loss of her sister a couple weeks ago, Luann. Sam Burton, Gary Spikes. Hope you're doing a little better, Gary. Sadie Griffey, which is Sherry's mother-in-law, but they call her Mama. Jay Rice for health problems. Shell Cal, Dion and her son are doing better still. Cindy Buno Goodbreak and her dog. Tristan Meyer's stepdad passed away a few weeks ago. Still praying for her.
Right.
She also says special prayers for her family and her little girl. Martin Groves, Kevin Smith, Dustin Jones, Casey Murphy, Roger Gay's mom, Ann, William Bay's wife, Kanita. She had surgery last week. Hope she's doing better. We haven't heard from him, so if you'll let us know on here, William. And his nephew has brain cancer, and his sister-in-law's family. Her grandson's lost her newborn baby last week, so still praying for her.
Well,
Yep.
so sorry to hear that.
Patricia Garrison, Mark Staten, Carrie Ann O'Meara lost her mom last week. Lloyd Davis's sisters, Jerry and Louise, Amy Long, Pan Campos and her son, Angie Napier and family, Frank Compton, Scott's Life's daughter Megan, Truthy Ruthie, Patty Garrison, and that's it. Oh no, sorry, got more. Hang on. Trey Hood, Cowboy 4572's wife Cindy, Sherry. Or I did say these, haven't I?
Yeah, I think so.
I got them all. Sorry.
And we got birthdays this month.
Got some birthdays. Sorry, guys.
Right.
It's been a heck of a day.
Right. It's been a heck of a week.
Yeah. So happy birthday to all of our October birthdays. Terry, Terry, that would be our friend, our brother Terry. Angie Napier, my little nephew Levi, our granddaughter Kenna, and my sister Lori. That's all the October birthdays I have. If you have one, please let me know and I'll put you on and we'll give you a shout out.
Right.
That's all I have.
Well, it's been a heck of a week, and you know, it's only halfway through, honey, so we still got a few more days to go. But once again, welcome to our little show here, especially to all our YouTube extended friends and family. I see a bunch of you guys here, a bunch of my wolf brothers and sisters here. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We have before we get started here, I'm going to shout out to Larry. If you guys need any roofing done, please call Larry. He does a good job. I'm going to get that count straight there. There it is. Yeah, does a great job. You need all your roofing needs, he'll take care of them. And if you're needing some reading material, and you've already read all of my books, as I'm sure that you have, our wolf brother Roger P. Gay has a book called Alone in the West. It's a really, really well-written book, available on Amazon.com. I know you guys are going to love that one. So get yourself a copy of that. And it's a really good book, and did a great job writing that book, and really enjoying it so far. And everybody, if you're a subscriber, please check to make sure that you're still a subscriber. You might be surprised to find that you're not. Through no fault of our own, we're having a lot of problems here. Not only with this platform, but we've been getting a lot of attempts at people trying to hack our phones. So now we can't access our YouTube channel through our phones or our desktop. So till we get that fixed, we'll be stuck to the desktop for the lives. But hopefully YouTube will contact us soon. They're saying they're going to send me an email and talk to someone. But it's really
still waiting.
Still waiting. It's a waiting game. Still, it's really, really. It's really, really frustrating sometimes. But I know the Lord will see us through. Hello, Werewolf and Brother Larry, Scott, Sister Anna, Sister Catherine, everyone. Hello tonight. We got a great guest coming to you. We're going to go ahead and get him on here. He's got some really good stories to tell you, all true. He is a brother in Christ. So we know what he says is going to be true and not made up. So these are the kind of people that we look for. So I want to introduce you now to an extremely nice fella, Chester Smith.
Hey, Chester.
How you doing, Chester?
Everybody.
How are you?
Can you hear me just fine?
Hear you
Yeah,
well.
we hear you just great.
All righty.
So, Chester, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. We've been talking for a little bit now, and
Well,
people might not be familiar with you.
I was born in Man, West Virginia. And anyway, I grew up all over the mountains of West Virginia. I learned how to hunt and fish and everything on my own. My dad, he didn't like guns or anything like that. So as a kid, I would go out and make bows and arrows, and I would archery hunt, small game, stuff like that. I would tell my parents I'm staying at somebody's house, and I wouldn't be staying at their house. I'd be camping out in the woods. And I'd do it all the time. I wanted to stay away from the house as much as possible because my dad was a abusive alcoholic, and it was pretty bad at times.
So sorry to hear that.
I spent more time out in those mountains in West Virginia than probably two people have done in their lifetime. I was always out there and just exploring. And I'd seen black bears. I've seen mountain lions. There's not much of those mountains I haven't seen. And anyway, we would move all the time. Like every year we'd end up moving, and it was right before school. It was right around August, because my dad would go on a drinking binge, and he would write a whole bunch of bad checks, and then we would skip town. And we're talking $25,000 in bad checks. And before they would hit the bank, we were gone. And of course, he got away with it because we're talking in the 80s. There was no internet or anything like that. They didn't really even have fax machines. So he would be wanted with felonies in one area of the state, and we just moved to another state. And we were usually in Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio area. So I got to see a lot of different mountains. If there was woods within 5 miles of where we moved, I was hitting them,
Yeah.
Anyway, whenever I moved from Rand, West Virginia, we moved to Kanawha City, which is right there as Charleston. And we moved up in this house that was up off of the 57th Street. You go up 57th Street, and there was 2 roads that come down to a point. And right there at that corner on the north side of the road is where we lived. And I loved it because I can open my back door and reach out and touch the hillside, because they had actually cut into the mountain to make a drop off behind the house to place the house where it was. So I just walk out my back door up the mountain, and, you know, I'd go up there and I'd swing on grapevines. I'd cut it off. And I mean, I'd swing out 50, 60 feet in the air back up.
Right. We used to do the same things when we were younger. It sounds like paradise to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what I found really interesting about that area, okay, everywhere else I'd lived, it was always rural or kind of rural. The kids played at night. You know, if there were streetlights out there, the kids were playing at night whenever there wasn't a school, and then your curfew was like 9 or 10 o'clock. Up in that holler, as soon as it started getting dark, everybody was indoors, doors shut. Nobody was out after dark.
Wow.
Another interesting thing about that is there was old abandoned houses up on the mountainside, you know, where somebody had died or whatever, and nobody wanted to live in the house because those houses didn't have electricity and running water or indoor plumbing. Everybody knows that kids are going to get into those houses. They're going to beat the walls out of them, spray paint them, bust the windows, kick the doors in. All those houses were intact. The kids never went up to those houses. They weren't allowed to go in the woods. And the woods are out your back door. But the kids had to stay in the street, or they had to stay in the little park that I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was on 57th Street. There was a park with swing sets and basketball court lights, but nobody was out there at night, and there were street lights. And you'd think kids would be playing basketball at night like they do everywhere else. Nope. Nobody in that holler went hunting, period.
Wow.
Nobody went hunting. I was the only person in that holler that walked to the Kanawha River and went fishing. Nobody else went fishing. It was nuts, and it really confused me. Now, my parents, they let me stay out as long as I want, you know, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, fine, no problem. So I'd be running the streets by myself and running up in the mountains and everything, and out there alone. And if the kids were out after dark, the punishment was severe, like a month's grounding. Another thing about that area, nobody had any dogs. Well, I'm sorry, one person had a dog. It was a pit bull, and he had that dog in the house at night. He never tied that dog up, and if that dog was outside, it was with him. That dog stayed with him. He didn't let that dog out of his sight. He was the only person that had a dog. Anyway, like I said, I was like,
you got grounded when you were kids. My parents didn't know that word. It was when we messed up. My mom would say, "All right, go cut a switch off the tree out there."
Yep.
But we never got grounded from anything because there was nothing, you know, back then to get grounded from. I don't guess. But
no, they didn't want to ground us. They didn't want to ground us because they didn't want us to stay in the house. They wanted us gone.
Right.
It's like
we just take a whipping and go on with it.
Sun comes up, you eat your breakfast, and out the door you go. We'll see you at night.
Yeah, see you at supper. And
that's pretty much how I grew up. You know, I mean, I was all over those mountains. Now, that place in 57th Street, that's southeast 57th Street, I would go way back in the mountains. I mean, there's a place back there called Rush Creek where people take their off-road vehicles back in there and play in the mud. I'd go walk past that all the way back up in there for miles. And I never saw anybody hiking, and except for the hiking trail at the base of 57th Street that goes up the top of the mountain, and it's got like 2 triangular stone heads like this, and they look like triangular shaped dragon's heads. It's a really neat rock formation. Unfortunately, the kids have spray painted it up and dug into it, but everybody, you know, out of towners would go up there and hike and look at that. They wouldn't hike nowhere else. I never ran into a person in the mountains. And you'd think, you know, during hunting season, they'd be up in there. No, surely not. Anyway, every once in a while, I would see something off in the distance. I couldn't tell what it was. You know, I'd be looking out from behind a tree and things like that. Well, after I'd been hiking up through there, I started noticing tracks going the same path that I take up to get into the mountains. I would see big tracks on the way down. And, I didn't think anything of it. I was just curious about what was following me and back trailing me. Well,
what kind of tracks did they look like? Did they look human?
They looked like a barefoot human, and they were about that big.
Wow.
18, 19 inches, and they were roughly 6 inches wide. And I started seeing them in the grass around the house. Every morning, I'd go hiking, and then I'd come back home, and there'd be a trail around the house. And then, there was one day that I was curious, and it had rained that evening. So, there was a perfect imprint trail up through the mountain. So I followed it, and I kept following it up through there. Eventually, I found this pond up there, and I'm like, oh man, this is neat. I wonder if there's any fish in it. So I see these sticks that are leaned up and X's and everything, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know what they were, they're just stick structures.
Right.
So I started gathering these sticks because they were convenient, and I built myself a lean-to up there, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to camp out up here this weekend. I went back up there, and I went to go fishing, and my lean-to was tore apart, and the structures were back set up. And I'm like, thinking some kid come back up in here and mess with it. That's an awful long walk for a kid. That's what went through my mind. Well, I took those stick structures and built my lean-to back. And I'm like, maybe it was an animal or this thing that I keep seeing off in the distance. So I'm like, okay, I read the book White Fang, and it puts into a lot of detail how they mark their territory and the mannerisms of animals. It's like the animal's point of view it gives you. So I thought it was.
Oh.
There. Now you can see what I'm doing. Anyway, I went to several trees, and I took a leak on them as high up as I could, marking that area as my territory. I thought it was funny. I was sitting there laughing. I was like, man, this thing's going to be mad. Yeah, it really was mad. Because the next time I went up there, it looked like a Holocaust. Every tree on that entire mountaintop was snapped off 6 to 7 feet in the air. Violently, like something grabbed me. And I'm like, oh shit. And I start looking at this, and it's just the whole top of that mountain's wiped out of trees. They're just smashed like a hurricane come through. But there was no storms. This is a massively powerful animal. The amount of strength that it takes to do that is just unfathomable. We're talking oak, pine, cedar, you name the brand of tree, it was up there and it was busted. Yeah. So I look around and I find a staff, and I pulled out my little survival knife and I sharpened that stick up, and I slowly snuck out of those mountains. And I kept hearing something walking in step with me. When I would stop, it would stop, but it was further away. But those leaves crunched. I hear sticks snapping, And here's something else about that area too. Every night I would hear trees fall. It was constantly, you would hear trees break, and you would hear whooping noises. But up through those mountains, I never saw a deer. I rarely saw a squirrel or a bird. There was almost like the animals had left that area. Anyway, I'm coming out of those mountains, and I'm terrified. I think I'm going to die. This is the most I have ever been afraid in my entire life. And I come down out of those mountains, and I'm thinking my friend's house is closer than mine because they're at the end of 57th Street, where I've got to traverse down that mountain. I want to get to the road. So I get to the logging road. I take it around the mountain. I'm getting chills. Sorry. I take it around the mountain, and right behind my friend's mobile home, there's like 20 feet, and then it just drops straight down. You got about 15, 20 feet across the bottom, and it goes straight up. Well, what I had done is I took a rope and climbed down it, and I took a shovel and dug hand and foot holds so I could go up and down right there. It was actually easier for me to go up the mountain, catch the logging road, and go over there to see my friends instead of take 57th Street, because after you get past my road, That road is so steep, you do not ride a bicycle or a skateboard down it. Coaster brakes on a bicycle, you hit them, you're going to slide that back tire all the way down. It's that steep.
Yeah.
Whenever it's wet or if there's snow on the road, nobody goes up and down that road. Just because it's a steep downhill and then it levels out and the ravine is over there. And they actually had a guy that tried to get out of his driveway in his Jeep, and he went off down in that ravine. That Jeep's still down there, or was.
Wow.
Anyway, I get to the ravine, I climb over, and of course my friends are grounded. They're always fighting. You know, brothers, they're going to fight.
So your friends got grounded too, man? You guys were lucky.
Oh, yeah. They got grounded. But when they got grounded, they weren't allowed to do any fun activities. They were doing yard work or housework. That was their grounding.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything for like 2 weeks. They were doing yard work. So I sat down there at the picnic table, and my back was to that ravine. And I set the spear down. I sat there and talked to them. And it started getting dark, and they had to go in. The only thing is they stayed out after it got dark, and they got grounded again. So I go to leave, and I pick up that spear, and then I remember, oh, shit. You know? So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to sneak down the road home. If there's street lights most of the way down there, I'm fine. Anyway, I go about 200 yards or so down the road, and there's this brick house that's covered with vines and, you know, grapevines and blackberries and all that. I used to pick blackberries around that house, but you can't get to the house. It's so thick. Now, mind you, the only place to cross that ravine is where I made it. The rest of it was choked with briars and vines, and it was uncrossable. I mean, if you went in there with climbing gear, you could not get across that ravine. It was choked on the wall so bad through there, you couldn't do it. Anyway, I get to that house, and my heart's racing in my chest. You know, my throat's tight, and I'm just tiptoeing, looking around to see if this thing is down there. I mean, I just had this utter terror, and I didn't know exactly why. But I get to the far side of that house, and the street light's on my left. The moon is out, so I can see pretty decent around this house. And I hear something in the bushes, and it's something large and dark. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a bear. If I just back away slow, I'm fine. I've dealt with bears before. This is nothing new. And then it stands up on 2 feet. And it was the scariest sight I've ever had. Take into account, it's only 15 feet from me. It's got light in its face, moon behind it. And I'm telling you, this thing, it was just massive. I mean, you know, the wall of the house was sticking out about 8 foot high. Mm-hmm. This thing's shoulders were just about even with that wall. And it was so big, it looked like a dang wall. And I lock eyes with this thing, and it's got this look of just malice on its face. And it was probably 5 to 10 seconds of me staring at this thing. And then it let out this screaming roar, and it like punched you in the chest. It was so loud and so powerful. And it just made me jerk. It hit me so hard, and I dropped my spear. And the only thing that went into my mind is run. And I took off down that hill that you can't ride a bicycle down. And I ran the fastest I've ever done in my life. And it seemed like it was just seconds that I was at the turnoff to my road. But this thing was on my tail. It ripped through those bushes that you couldn't get through. And it come out of that road, and it was on my tail. I was running for my life. I get to the corner, and I believe that road is Victory Avenue. I'm not sure. I get to that road, and I leaned into that turn. Now, mind you, I still don't know how I pulled this off, because if you run down a steep hill and it transitions to flat, your legs give out on you. You go down. I didn't do that. I hit that curve leaning into it like I'm on a motorcycle. And when I did, that thing grabbed the back of my shirt right here and yanked, and it ripped the whole back of my shirt off. It left fingernail marks down my back. These are not claw marks. These are fingernail marks like your fingers.
Yeah.
I hit that curve. The thing ripped my shirt off, and it if you know anything about skateboarding, it was a Tony Hawk flaming wheel shirt. It had a skate wheel on it and flames. And back then, those shirts were like triple thick cotton for road rash. They were tough shirts, and it ripped it off my back like it was nothing. I come up through there, and I yanked open the front door and slammed it shut, and I dove under my bed. And my bedroom was 3 walls on the front of the house, and it was like 3 feet high, and the rest was glass to the ceiling, like it was a porch that they glassed in for a sunroom. Yeah. And they turned it into a bedroom for me because, you know, and we hung heavy drapes around it. But I dove under that bed, and I was crying. I was freaking out. I was screaming. My dad ran in there and grabbed me by the ankle out from under this bed. It was one of those old wrought iron beds that like sits this high off the floor. So it's really a lot of room underneath it. He snatched me off and under that, drugged me in the living room, threw me in the chair, and slapped my face. Pow! He said, "What in the world has gotten into you?" And I told him, I said, "Something chased me out of the woods and it tried to get me." And he's like, "Oh, whatever, you know." And I'm like, "No, seriously." I turned around and looked, and they saw those claw marks down my back. Now, me and my mom had talked about it years later. She said those fingernail marks were so wide, she couldn't get her fingers that wide to match up to them. They were all the way across my back. There was 4 of them, and they like 2 here and 2 out the sides. They was really wide. It was huge hands.
Yeah. Now, Chester, can you describe the face? You looked into this thing's eyes. What kind of face is it?
It was like a cross between a Neanderthal man and an ape, is the best way I can describe it. Its nose was flat, but you couldn't see the nostrils like you can on a gorilla.
Yeah.
And it had a conical shaped head. Didn't look like it had a neck at all. I mean, this thing looked like it had football pads on, you know, giant football. It was massive. It really terrified me. And
what color skin did it have? Did you notice?
It was a dark skin. It was like almost a black, but not quite. I mean, it was in that range of black, but like, or I guess I'd say like an old dirty brown work boot, that kind of dark, you know. But it had like a beard down here, but it didn't have any hair on the rest of its face. I mean, it had a huge forehead. And people have asked me, like, how big was the head? If you've ever seen the movie The Princess Bride, there's a fight scene between Andre the Giant and Wesley, and Wesley jumps on his back. That's how big its head is. I mean, it's unbelievably large. And I got a darn good look at that face a couple weeks later. So anyway, like I said, my dad slapped my face and everything, and I showed him that. And then we saw this shadow go by the window. And the living room, my dad's desk was like, the part of his desk was like shoved up against one wall of my bedroom. You know, it shared a wall. Mm-hmm. And the window beside that desk was like the side of the house where he parks his car. Well, he walked over to the window when the shadow went by, and he pulled the window out a couple of inches. He let it go. He turned around white as a sheet. Now, my dad wasn't afraid of nothing. I mean, we're talking a man 6'4", 280 pounds, hands like a brick. He did construction and carpentry his whole life. Man was a Korean combat veteran. Never afraid of nothing. When he looked away from that window, he was white as a sheet. He goes, "Everybody turn the lights off and go to bed now." And that's what we did. But what he did say when he looked away from that window, before he told us to go to bed, he looked at me and he goes, "Boy, what the hell did you bring out of those mountains after us?"
Uh-oh.
So he's seen it, but he never spoke of it. Never once. We never talked about this at the house until years later when my dad had moved out. I talked to my mom a few times about it when I was in my 20s, but we never spoke of it. But for weeks, every night, this thing was outside of my bedroom at night, walking around, tapping the windows every night. I could hear it sniffing, smelling my scent.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that night after, the lights went out and everything, I grabbed my blankets and I curled up in a corner underneath my bed and I cried myself to sleep. I guess I had an adrenaline crash eventually, but I eventually fell asleep. And every night this thing would be outside my house, tapping the windows and everything. And I'd see its shadow from the street lights walking around those windows. And I said sniffing. And I would hear that and I'd get underneath my bed and cover up in blankets and hide. And hoping if this thing broke into the house, it was not going to find me. That was my thoughts on that. That's why I was doing it. It absolutely terrified the hell out of me. Well, there was one night that I got up and I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything outside. So I went over to the window and I pulled my drape open. Apparently this thing was standing at the door and I'm looking at the window, out the window beside it. And I opened that curtain a little bit more. It takes a step and ducked down and its face was right here in my face on the other side of a pane of glass. And it was mad.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, God.
Would you say it looked evil or just mean, Chester?
It was angry. This thing was angry. I don't believe it was evil because if this thing wanted me, it could have come through that house, no problem at all with the power it has, and killed everybody. And of course, my dad, he wouldn't call the police because he's been writing all these bad checks for years. And he had just started writing those bad checks again right there before school starts in August, 1988. He starts writing these bad checks, quit his job, started drinking. He goes on a drinking binge for a couple of weeks and then we move. But we normally would move 100 or 200 miles, move from Kanawha City, West Virginia to Greer, South Carolina. I mean, we got out of there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it absolutely was. It was like a horror show living through that.
Yeah.
And after that, I never went that far in the woods again. I'd still go in the woods, not after dark. I wouldn't camp out by myself anymore. I'd go fishing by myself in the daytime, but never at night. Nothing at night. At night, I was in the house. And to this day, I am still afraid of the dark. I can go out my back door sometimes. I'll have a flashlight and I just start shaking out of fear. It terrified me. Now, me and a friend of mine, we do research in the Tennessee area now. We go out, but we never go out by ourselves. We never go out without a sidearm and a shotgun, semi-automatic 12. We watch each other's backs. But yeah, I don't like being outside at night by myself, even if I have a firearm. I mean, because I'm telling you, what I saw, there's no gun that a average person can own that will drop that thing in its tracks. It won't do it. And if you shoot that thing, you're going to make it mad and it's going to tear you apart. And I'm pretty certain that they don't travel alone. You might see one, but you're not going to see the other ones that are in that area that are going to tear your head off. And they absolutely possess the strength. I guarantee you they can throw a pickup truck. They can.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
A small pickup truck, like a little Ford Ranger, I guarantee you they could pick that sucker up and throw it. If they can break a tree that big around with their hands, it's scary to think how much strength they have. I mean, you take a 400-pound gorilla, they can't test the strength of a gorilla, but they estimate that it is able to pick up bench press 4 times its body weight. That's an estimate. Every zoo out there guesses the strength of an animal. They guess the strength of a gorilla or a chimp, but they don't know for sure. I mean, I've seen a 200-pound man on a video. He's got this little 50-pound chimp, and this chimp climbs up on a platform, and then this guy goes up, and that chimp reaches him one-handed, grabs his hand, picks him up all the way up to his feet, and sets him on that platform. Those things are so strong, you don't want to mess with them.
So generally, they say that the gorillas and the apes are 10 times stronger than a man.
That's
so
an estimate.
Very strong. Now, I would say that the Bigfoot are at least 10 times stronger than the gorilla.
Oh,
in my opinion,
that or more. I mean, they're insane. Anyway,
So you live in Tennessee now, huh?
Yes.
Right, Chester?
I'm in Middle Tennessee now.
And Sheldon wants to know if you have any PTSD. I'd say you kind of do if you're still.
Oh, yeah. I had
Mhm.
nightmares for years where I'd wake up screaming all the way up into my 30s. I'm 49 now, but I would wake up screaming and swinging all the way up into my 30s.
Right. So Scared Silly says, I wonder if his dad's drinking was caused by him seeing it. No, he was drinking before that. That just probably escalated his drinking, right, Chester?
Yeah, because when we moved to Greer, South Carolina, he lived with us for probably 2 years. And anyway, I was working at a ballpark down there. It was actually the minor league for the Atlanta Braves. It was the Greenville Braves, and that's where the Atlanta Braves used to get their new players. I worked there for a couple of months, and I was the one they put the backpack blower on to blow up all the peanut shells.
Yeah.
Anyway, me and some friends, we went to Myrtle Beach after I got paid. The people that were taking me back and forth to work, they had a falling out in their family and they moved. So I lost my ride, couldn't go to my job. Anyway, we decided to take a trip. Me, 1, 2, 3, 4, me and 5 other teenagers that were my friends. We went down to Myrtle Beach and we were down there like 4 days partying, had a hotel room and everything. And when we come back, I found out my dad went on a drinking binge, quit his job, and beat my wife, my mom, and he beat her so bad that he detached her retina or her optic nerve. And I found that out about what he did, and I was 15 years old, and I beat the living daylights out of him. And I run him off and didn't know where he was for years. He moved to Florida and wound up quitting drinking. After I beat him, he didn't drink another day in his life, but he died of colon cancer. Right. It was about a week before my 21st birthday.
Well, I tell you, it's karma, karma will eventually find everyone.
Yep.
Sooner or later. So that was, now, did you ever see any Bigfoot in any of these other states that you moved to?
I have in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. So is that at the place where you live now, or
Yes.
some other part of Tennessee? Where you live now?
It's here in this area, because we were living in Hendersonville and then we moved to Hartsville. And this house is up the side of a mountain, trees all around it. And it was like 2 years after we moved here that I started getting activity during deer season, always during deer season. It's like 2 weeks before. Well, anyway, I've been out on my porch and I can do 3 knocks on the post and across the mountain from me. Most of the time it'll do it. And I've done that from where it goes dark up into 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And it'll answer every time with 3 knocks. I have seen them come up and look through this window. Now, the bottom of that window is 6 feet high. The one that I saw look through the window was looking through that pane.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's like,
so you're talking 8 foot at least.
I could barely look over the lip of the window from outside. But this thing was looking through the top of that window.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think your knocks brought them in? Or you think your tree knocks are attracting them? Because I think when you were small, when you were a boy in the 80s, I think they didn't want you taking the fish out of its pond. That's probably what made it mad.
Probably taking down his structures, because
taking his structures, right?
X is a fence, and you cross over it. I took those down, and then I marked its territory. Inside its territory, it's mine. I challenged this thing, and I think eventually it realized that I was a kid, and it chasing me home and getting after me like that. I was being corrected for naughty behavior. It corrected me. If it wanted me dead, I wouldn't be here. That thing could have tore me up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I was a fast runner, but that sucker could have got me, sit up there and waited until I come up there and just nailed me. But I believe it was correcting me. And it was pretty mad. But
Yeah, everything you did was like a direct challenge to its habitat there and its territory.
Yep. But if you watch like gorillas and orangutans, they'll correct their children like that.
Mm-hmm.
They will. They'll scare the crap out of them to correct them.
Right. Let me ask you this: in that time period, in that house in West Virginia, did you ever experience anything odd or unnatural, like ghosts or UFOs or anything like that?
Not in that house, no. But there was a house where I visited a family friend in Arkansas. They had moved in the new house, and it was like a month later. I loaded up my truck and I took them some stuff down there because they were a new couple, just got together, and they needed furnishings and stuff. So I hauled a bunch of old furniture down there to them, and I brought me an air mattress to sleep on with my ex. Well, this family, we also sold them a poodle, a little teacup poodle dog. Well, anyway, the room that I was staying in was a very back room, and it was just a concrete floor, concrete walls, and had little wall-mounted gas heater, and you just turn the knob on top, and it light the flames up. I mean, this was cold weather. It was getting into fall. So I go back there, and I turned on that heater, and the only way to lock this door was one of those little slide bolts you lift up, slide in, and push down.
Yeah.
Anyway, I go back there, air up the air mattress. Me and the ex lay down, sleeping bags on. I set the heater, and the room's warming up. Anyway, that little dog was not in that room. It was just me and her, air mattress, sleeping bags. That was all that was in that room. Anyway, I'm laying there, and I'm starting to doze off, and I'm like, God, it is cold in here. What's going on? So I get up, and that heater was turned off. I'm like, what the heck? And why is the door open? Yeah. So I turn the heater back on, shut the door, latch it. I go lay back down. My ex never moved. She was asleep. Start to doze off again, and it's cold. This happened 4 or 5 times that door would open, and that heater would be turned off. I'm like, this is weird. Needless to say, the last time it got turned off, that little dog was in the room with me. And I'm sitting here petting him. How the hell did you get in the room? I locked that door. I know I did. This dog all of a sudden starts growling and looking at something walking around the room. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I put the dog back out, turned the heater on, shut the door, lay back down. And it didn't. 5 minutes later, I get this feeling something is right in my face. You know how you could tell when you get a blanket over, somebody gets in your face?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And then all of a sudden it goes in my face. I yanked that blanket down. There's nothing there. Heater's off. Door's open again. I'm like, the hell with this. I got up, turned the heater on, shut the door. I went in the living room, and I'm like, okay, coffee. So I start making a pot of coffee. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And about 15 minutes later, my ex gets up. She walks in there, and I'm like, she goes, why did you open the door and turn the heater off again? I'm like, I didn't. I turned the heater on and shut the door, even though I couldn't latch it. It was shut. So we get coffee, and we're sitting down there, and we're talking about it. I'm telling her what happened. I'm like, this is just weird. Anyway, the couple get up, and they're like, what are you doing up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Because us talking had woke them up. And I'm like, there's something going on in that back room. She goes, and the lady's like, yeah, I've noticed some weird stuff too. She said, I'd be the only person home, and I'd be taking a shower, and it feels like somebody gropes me. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. And I explained about the heater and everything, and sun come up, and I was ready to get out of there. I mean, I'm like, the hell with this. We were going to stay the weekend, but I decided to do some looking around. This house had a detached garage, and I went in the garage, and I was looking around in there, and I found a box. Oh, this box had pictures in it that were scorched, one of which was 2 children, a lady, and a police officer. I'm like, okay. So I decide, I find me a local cop, small town, big fat cop sitting in a diner. I went down and located him and started talking to him, and I asked him about that house. And he goes, yeah, he said about 10, 15 years ago, this police officer that worked in that town came home from work early. He wasn't feeling well. He caught his wife in the bed with another man. He killed her, him, both kids, set the house on fire, and committed suicide in that house. Now,
Oh
that
my
house
God.
was solid stone. So after that, all the wood had burnt down, they had rebuilt that house and was renting that house out. So that house had multiple murders happen in it. And they weren't in that house a month before they got the hell out of it. They said it was just too much going on in there. He said he'd walk through the house and it felt like somebody kicked him between the legs.
That's bad.
That's a bad house. And I don't know if the house is still there today. But, that cop said, yeah, they rent the house out. People are in and out of that house all the time. Nobody ever stays a couple of months in that house. It's like a month or two and they're out.
That's why.
Yeah.
You have a question. Riley Ron Ivy Forrest says, has the guest ever been to Grafton or heard about the Grafton monster in West Virginia?
No, I've never been to Grafton or heard about that.
Okay.
Grafton monster. I know what I've seen in Kanawha City, West Virginia seemed like a monster. Now, I've also had, I haven't really looked into it too much, but I believe it was a rake that I ran into in my 20s in Missouri. My ex, she wanted us to cut a new tree every year, a new Christmas tree, go out in the woods, cut it down. My thing was, if I have to do this, I'm going to use a different implement every time, like a bow saw this time, an axe this time, a tomahawk this time. Well, I got off work and she wanted to put the tree up. I was tired. It was dark, and she wanted to put the tree up. Well, I had recently acquired a 38 short revolver, just semi-auto, or, you can't cock it to shoot. It wasn't dual action, regular action.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get ammo for it because I had to send them off to somebody to have the cases cut down and then reloaded. Well, this gun had no penetration power whatsoever, but I thought it was a neat gun because it used to be a Canadian mounting pistol. And it was top break, pretty cool. So anyway, I decided I'm going to take this pistol with me instead of my 45 that I had, which would have been a better choice. Because this pistol, you could shoot it in a steel barrel with it, and it wouldn't go through a steel barrel. One of the steel drums.
Yeah.
Anyway, I take this pistol with me. My ex is like, I got the flashlight. I'm like, okay. We walk down the road to the edge of the property, and we start cutting back into the woods along the fence line to go after this blue spruce that I'd seen back there. As we're going back in there, I hear something moving in the woods, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a deer. No big deal, right? My ex shines the light where the noise was, and the light is like almost completely dead. It is dim, big 6-cell mag light, and you don't put batteries in it,
Mm-hmm.
So this flashlight is quickly dying. I see a set of eyes about 6 feet high, and these eyes are bobbing around, like a bird will bob its head around. And this is what this thing's doing, is bobbing its head around. And I'm like, what on earth is that? It's too tall to be a deer. And then I hear this wee like that. But it sounded like that frilled lizard on Jurassic Park. It sounded like that. It was twittery like that. And it went high and low, like 3 or 4 times it made that noise. I've got that 38 out, pointed at it, and I'm like, regretting my choice of firearm. Well, this thing is standing by a tree, and all of a sudden, it just straight up that tree, just boom, way up that tree, all the way to the top of that tree. I hear branches breaking, and then silence. Like, what on earth is that? A few seconds later, about 40 feet behind me, it hits in the top of the tree and comes down that tree to the base. And I'm like, okay, let's get out of here. So she's got the flashlight. It's dying. And I'm pointing this 38 at this thing, and we're slowly backing out of the woods. And I'm like, that tree can stay. I believe that to be a rake that I saw that time.
Could you make out anything but the eye shine?
It was just eye shine. That light was so dead. It was just enough to get its eyes to reflect. And that was it.
Yeah.
And when it went up that tree, I didn't hear wings. This thing didn't fly. It climbed up that tree just like a rocket, and it was snapping limbs all the way up. And then when it hit the other tree, it snapped them all the way down. And I'm like, we're done.
Right. Now, how far between the trees did you say? So it jumped from one tree to the next tree, right?
About 40 feet.
40 made a 40
Come
foot leap.
over and come down in a tree about 40 feet behind us. So probably 60 feet. I'd say about 60 feet this thing traversed through the air.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
So,
that
yeah.
that right there, you, and whenever I told you about it when we talked on the phone, I told you about it and I've told my wife about it. And now I'm telling everybody about it. That's the only times I've talked about it.
Well, I
So,
appreciate that. Appreciate
yeah,
you
about that.
telling us here. We're all interested in the truth, hearing the truth, Chester. And you know, I'm humbled and honored that so many people have chosen me to come speak to, and especially for the first time. And it just amazes me how many people out here have had experiences, you know, like you and I have had, and most of them don't talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
In their lives. So,
Went for a long time about, not talking about any of it. There's a very few people that I've talked to about having it here, having the activity here every deer season. Well, let's put it this way. One time right before deer season, I've got a huge stone fireplace right there. And there's about 6 feet of wall on the other side of it, and the wall cuts across. I was sitting on the couch one evening, and there was no rain, no wind, or anything like that, but something body checked that wall between the fireplace and the front wall of the house. Something body checked that thing so hard that I heard wood popping, creaking, snapping. I thought the wall was coming down. It hit that wall so hard.
wow.
It was August.
I don't know
I don't know what that is.
Oh, that was my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We keep hearing. I was like, I don't have nothing turned on.
But just this, right before deer season this year, right before August open weekend, it was like 2 weeks before that, my wife was laying in bed back there, and she thought that wall was coming down. The wall where the air conditioner was. I mean, the wall creaked and popped, and she said it sounded like somebody was trying to rip the air conditioner out of the window. And I'm like, okay. Well, she grabbed her 40 and her flashlight, went outside and just hollered out there, ammo's expensive. I'm not doing warning shots, so this is your only warning. Well, she told me about it, and me and her went out there the next day, and there's 2 sets of fingerprints on that wall, and the fingerprints are like twice the size of my fingers. I mean, I wear a size 13.5 ring, and those fingerprints were twice the size of mine. And to tell you the truth, they're still out there on the back wall of my house.
Oh.
Why don't you take pictures of those, Chester?
That wall.
Yeah, take pictures of all that stuff. Though. So
Oh,
what
yeah,
area do you?
I got pictures of it.
Oh, you do. So now you and your partners, you research there in Middle Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that what kind of an area is that? Is that one of the most active areas that you've ever been to? Or
Okay, I can't give out the location.
No, of course not. No, we don't
because
want
people live there, and
Right.
other people are going to go sneaking onto that property trying
Sure.
to find evidence and stuff like that. And those people have to live there. So if somebody goes in there and messes up and makes them mad, those people have to live with that.
Sure. Yeah. Don't want that to happen. What kind of activity have you all experienced there?
Oh, quite a bit. I actually saw, me and my buddy Billy actually saw one. We had been out in, I got a rhino pop-up blind. And we set up the rhino pop-up blind at the hill above the swamp because we researched this swampy area. There's very few ways to get down in there. Anyway, we were sitting up there in the blind, and he had just done a live stream like, hey, this is Billy and Chester, blah, blah, blah. We're out here at our research location, and we'll be reporting in, any activity. As soon as he got done with that, we had just been down that hill in that swamp, and the only access to the area we were at is where we just came out. So we get in the deer blind and sit down. And as soon as we sit down, whap, 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 3 massive loud tree knocks. I mean, I've taken a stick and tried to make the same sound, but I can't make it deep enough. I mean, this was a big log hitting a big tree. Anyway, it did it 2 sets of 3 down there. And I'm like, okay, nobody can get in that area. I mean, if you don't take the trail we did, you're going to sink up to your knees. Anyway, we get those 2 sets of tree knocks. And I was like, man, why did you end the live? It was like 10 seconds after you ended the live. We would have had that. So we're sitting there in the deer bind, and we start getting rocks thrown at us, periodically, just small pebbles. And they're coming from down in the swamp. And they're pinging off that deer bind. And I'm like, okay, it knows where we're at. Let's go. Plus, we were getting cold. We had one of those little buddy heaters, and it ran out of heat. So we packed up the blind, threw it in the truck, and he goes, I want to run around up through here and use my FLIR and look down what he calls a pipeline. It's actually a clearing where power lines go through. And we're going up the hill, and he's like, I've been looking through the FLIR while he's driving, and he goes, hand me the FLIR. So I hand him the FLIR. I had already taken my pistol off my belt because, it was uncomfortable sitting in the truck with it, big 45, 2 mags on this side, it got uncomfortable. So I took my handgun off, and I had my shotgun sitting there, and I had just set my phone down. Well, when he's looking at the pipeline, I look to the right where this abandoned house is. It's got a carport and a shed, and I see a blonde one. It was blonde, Bigfoot. It has its hand on the shed, and it's looking over the peak, right by the peak of the shed, looking around at me. Billy's going about 2 or 3 miles an hour, and I'm like, oh, shit, and I jerked the door out, and I chased it.
Really?
After because I tried to put it in my head that maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw in West Virginia, it's just kind of hard to get your head around. I see this thing looking around the corner of this building at me, and I was so excited, I jumped out of a moving vehicle and chased it. When I jumped out, Billy looked, and he saw its back and its feet beating it for the woods, and I'm right on its tail. No firearm, no camera, nothing.
Well, how did that end?
There was no way I could keep up with it. As soon as I got to the corner of the shed, the woods were like 200 yards back away. It was gone. There was no place else for it to go once I got to the shed, but it covered 200 yards before I covered 30 yards. That was quick.
Wow.
Of course, Billy, he had to get the truck in park, and when he come around the hood, he seen its back, and it was just booking it for the woods. Where I jumped out, the shed was blocking my view of the path it ran, but he watched it run all the way up to the woods. Now, we have also seen them on the FLIR camera. Didn't get definitive pictures, but we've seen them on the FLIR. It's just they're moving, and they're hard to spot. There was one time we were down at the edge of the swamp. There's a big open field there with a row of trees in the middle. And Billy's standing in front of me, and I see a tree wiggle. No wind. Tree's probably 50 feet tall. I see it wiggle, so I grab the little sapling next to me, and I wiggle it, and it wiggles back. I wiggle the tree, and it wiggles back. This goes on for about 2 or 3 minutes, and Billy's like, look at that tree wiggling. And he turns around and he goes, it's answering you.
Wow.
Now, we've also taken and put 10 pounds of apples out in that field. And we sit over, where we can't see them. Well, we left and come back the next day, and all those apples had been gathered up and set in a pile. And all the apple cores were eaten. But I'm telling you, I have never seen an apple picked so clean. Little veins between the seeds have a little meat on it. That was picked clean. The seeds were all sitting in a pile. The little pieces were there. Any animal out there finds an apple, it's just going to eat the whole dang apple. It's not going to meticulously peel apart every piece of meat on an apple and leave what's not meat. But every single apple out of 10 pounds was done that way, and they were all gathered up and put in one spot.
That's unusual to say the least.
Yep. Now, we've also sat down in that field and watched the turkey walking up the side where there's a bunch of briars. And I'm like, Billy, keep an eye on that turkey. I need to get something. And I turned around to get my camera, and when I looked back, that turkey was gone. And I asked Billy, I was like, where'd that turkey go? He can't get into that row of brush. I didn't hear him fly. Billy's like, I don't know. I looked down and looked right back up, and it was gone. Something snatched that turkey up.
Wow.
Just that quick.
That turkey never made a sound. It was just walking right up along the side of that tree line, and it just disappeared. Something snatched it up. And see, I've also flown my drone out there, And I've shared pictures with other people, Jennifer Appleton being one of them. I sent her a bunch of pictures, and she spotted a dog man that's looking through the trees at us on the other side of a field off of one of my drone videos or drone photos.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess we could go to Wolf Brother Daryl Denton's group and see that, right? Bigfoot
Yes,
believers
absolutely.
and what is it?
Absolutely.
Believers and creatures.
I can post it again. That's no problem.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Love to see that, Chester.
This creek down the road that I go fishing at, I've gone down there and found I wear size 13. This footprint was bigger than mine, and it was pushed in the sand that deep. Now, at that time, I was like 220 pounds, and I barely made a dent in the sand. I stepped over that footprint, and you could see my shoe track. That thing is pushed deep. Something is heavy that stepped in that creek. Now, what me and Billy have discovered is they're using this creek to get through this swamp. They cross over through the creek, and it goes into a lake, and they go into that lake area and get fish out of that lake, like noodling. Because, I mean, we've gone down there and found tracks everywhere. We have found nests back in there in that swampy area, only in the dry area. I've got tons of pictures of tree breaks, tree twists, where tree 7-8 feet up in the air is broken and twisted. Trees don't normally break that. They break, they go over, they snap, and they splinter. But it's always at the bottom. They don't break up high.
Right.
That's almost a surefire sign that Bigfoot has done that.
Oh, absolutely.
Myself, you know, it doesn't happen in nature. Something has to do that. Now,
see, my grandfather used to live in Taplin, West Virginia. He was an old West Virginia coal miner. The house he built a log cabin to live on land halfway up the mountain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Every bit of food in that house came from the garden, the woods, or the river. They never bought any food. They would buy bottles of Pepsi. They'd buy ice cream. My grandpa would get his chip twist tobacco. They heated the house with coal. They never had any electricity, running water, nothing in that house. I mean, they just loved to live that way. Well, anyway, they had
I did live in that way. I had to live that way when I was younger, brother, and it was, you know, we didn't know any better, but it was pretty rough. You know, you have to use an outhouse. You go outside to use the bathroom.
Oh yeah, yep. I loved visiting my grandpa.
Full lanterns, for light.
No, I absolutely loved visiting my grandpa, and I love the area he lived in Taplin. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, one day, he ups and moves. I mean, my grandfather never owned a car. He never drove a car. Never. He was only in a car just to move, and they moved from Taplin to Logan, West Virginia, right beside the railroad tracks, you know, river right there. But my grandfather also did something else. He sold all of his rifles, all of his hunting equipment, and the man never hunted again in his entire life. He would go fishing at the river near the house. I think that he was up in those mountains and experienced something that scared the hell out of him, because he stayed out of the mountains after that. And he would always say, stay out of the woods, stay in the house at night, or the boogers will get you. And whenever it started getting dark, everybody's in the house, doors shut. And after that, he also had indoor plumbing and he had electricity, which is two things that he hated, but he had it in that next house that he had.
Sure. So he never did talk about what he'd seen, though, did he?
My grandfather, he rarely talked. He was one of those guys that would say 2 or 3 words, and that's all he needed to say. But you knew it was the gospel truth.
Yeah. Yeah, the old timers, they didn't. They're not ones to spread around no BS. You know, they're.
Oh yeah.
What they say is usually true.
Now see, again, something strange that was going on in that 57th Street, Kanawha City area. There was this old gray-haired man, leather face. Everybody said he was an Indian. He never talked to anybody. He'd sit out on the porch and either drink a beer or, you know, he'd smoke his pipe, drink his coffee. He always had a double-barreled shotgun sitting on that porch, leaned up next to him. Every time he was outside, that shotgun was with him. Well, everybody in that area knew I run the mountains all through there. You know, none of their kids were allowed to. But one day I walked by that old Indian, and he looked at me and goes, "Hey, boy." I said, "Yes." He goes, you need to stay out of those mountains. There's things out here you don't understand. And that's the only time he ever talked to me. I was like, what do you mean? He stood up, picked up a shotgun, walked in the house, shut the door. But that was the only time I even know that man talked to somebody.
Wow.
Well, he give you good advice too, because I'm sure he knew what was up there.
I really wish I'd listened to him.
Really?
The Adventures of Billy and Chester, we took my UTV out there and drove it around and through the creek and parked it, backed it in to the brush line on the side of the field. And we were sitting here watching this field. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Billy, he smokes. He was smoking a cigarette, and the wind was blowing from him to me. And he's like, sit there a few minutes, goes, did you fart? And I said, no. I said, dude, you're upwind of me. If I farted, you wouldn't even smell it. And all of a sudden the smell hit me. And I started puking. It was that putrid.
Wow.
Well, we had been hearing something that direction, something big working through the trees, hear sticks break every once in a while, hear a footstep. And I was like, oh God. I mean, the longer we sat there, the stronger that fart got. And I had to fire it up and leave. Me and him got crop dusted by Sasquatch.
Ain't that something?
Wow.
It was bad. We were throwing up. It was that putrid.
Wow.
That must have been a really, really rank smell.
Oh,
so you're a group. That's something that you belong to, Chester, that we can go check out your stuff, or you and Billy. I assume you and Billy Howell, right?
No, we're not really part of a group. We do it on our own just for the fun of it, and we share it with some friends, but there's not an official group that we do. And we don't really have a research group that we're a part of. We just do it on our own for fun and hang out. We'll go down to the park area and sit there and listen and look with the FLIR and do some fishing and stuff like that.
Have you or Billy or any time in your life ever seen any strange lights or orbs or anything in the woods that you can't explain?
Okay. I used to be an over-the-road truck driver, and you hit coast to coast, and I used to teach people how to drive semi-trucks. Well, somebody that can't drive a stick shift or anything, and I teach them how to drive an 18-wheeler, 10-speed transmission going down the road, from not knowing anything, having a permit, all the way up to getting their own truck. Well, I had one student with me that he was into photography, and I was too. I don't know if I still have the magazine, but Heartland magazine actually has a photo shoot. Since I sent in a bunch of photos, they've actually got several pages in it, and plus the back cover. And their Heartland trucking company, their logo is a photo that I took of a Heartland coming towards me. So I was really big into photography, and we went out to this little town. It's called Cuervo, New Mexico. And all the houses are old. They're like red stone. The roofs are caving in on them. And I just thought they were beautiful. So we stopped the semi-truck on the shoulder of the road there and walk over, and we're taking pictures of everything. And whenever I uploaded those pictures to my laptop, if you zoom in, those pictures are full of phantom orbs, and they have little tails like comets. It's like almost every single picture from that photo shoot that I did out there has little orbs in it. Well, the student that I had, he was walking, and I took pictures, and there's 3 of them following him. It's nuts. I probably got 100 pictures in my old laptop of Cuervo, New Mexico, and here's all these orbs in it. It blows. It's mind blowing because the way the sun's set up and everything, there is nothing there to create that. Not a light on the camera lens. There's nothing reflective there. You could zoom in on them and tell it's an orb and not a reflection.
Yeah,
it'll blow your mind. I'll have to see if I can get in that laptop one of these days and zoom, get them blown up and get them out there and shared.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody would love to see them. And personally, I think the orbs are the true form of these inhumanoid creatures like Bigfoot.
I'm not sure about any of that. I try to stay neutral on my thoughts of what they are, but them disappearing and stuff like that. My thought is, since I've been out deer hunting, a doe can be walking through the woods and you're looking at it. That doe stops. You're looking dead at it. You look away to do something. You look back and it is gone. It has disappeared. They blend in that well, and you won't see that deer again until it moves. I mean, it's easy to lose sight of a deer. I've taken a picture out of this window, and there are 4 deer in that picture, and the most anybody has found in that picture is 2, but there are 4 deer in that picture. I mean, they camouflage up pretty quick.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, brother, I've experienced the cloaking aspect of these things myself twice, and once in broad daylight, and there's no other way to explain it. This thing took 4 steps away in broad daylight and did leaf fall, stopped, and there was nothing there. It never took a 5th step, and we scoured that area. There's 4 of us, and they had thrown a dirt clod at us. We was down on the river fishing, and we scoured that area, and I couldn't even find the tracks, the 4 tracks. In leaf fall, it's really easy to track something. All you got to do is get down and lower your vantage point, your viewpoint, until you can see the disturbed leaves, right?
Right.
I couldn't see any. And it scared the girls, and of course, we left, and it was at a house that we lived in when we were younger, and we had left the house because my mother saw a flying saucer come down one night and land behind one of our barns. But later on, I found out that same location had a long history of Bigfoot sightings to go with the UFO sighting. So, to me, one dot leads to another dot, and you have to be willing to connect the dots. If you want true answers, how can these things be a relic hominid or a gigantopithecus, a big monkey, and do the things that they do? It's impossible. That raises so many questions to me.
I don't throw out the thought of cloaking or anything like that, because there's so many animals out there that can do amazing things that would seem impossible. An octopus can change its shape.
Yes.
It can adjust its skin, make itself bumpy. Right. There are fish out there that can change colors. The Humboldt squid, they change colors and they communicate with color changes. So I just not personally experienced the cloaking, but I don't rule that out. I mean, everything that I've seen seems more flesh and blood. But again, I mean, animals are capable of doing amazing things that seem impossible, But we take that and accept that because there's video and photos of it, But there are still so many animals out there that have not been discovered.
Right. Bigfoot is just an animal, brother?
I have no idea what it is. I know it's big, I know it's scary, and I know it's strong. Oh my gosh. And like the activity that I have had here, I was working a job. Actually, it was Chewy warehouse, and it was working all night long. Well, we had a storm come through and it knocked out the power, and they don't have a backup generator, or well, they do. And we worked until the generator was ready to roll out of gas. And it's like, okay, that's it. No light, no generator. We're done. So I'm like, okay. So I left work and I'm getting home, and it's like 2:00 in the morning. And I usually get home with like 6 or 7. Anyway, I whip my truck in the driveway, shut it off, hop out, and I start walking around to the door to come in. As soon as I hopped out of my truck, I hear thump, 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 thump. Something is running hard across my front yard. And it takes it's like 75 yards from tree line to tree line in my front yard. It's like a bowl of trees. This thing takes like 6 or 7 thumps across my front yard. And then it crashes into this big white oak tree that I have sitting out here. I mean, the base of this tree is that big around. It's pretty good sized white oak. It clambers up to the top of the tree, and all I hear is trees snap, pow, 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 limbs breaking, and then snap, and the top of that tree comes out and lands in my front yard.
Wow.
You are just so into that. So anyway, I get in the house, and I'm thinking, I had to grab my shotgun and my flashlight and see what's up in that tree, because it's up there, and it starts hooting, and I was like, I really want to see that. And then I get to thinking, you're by yourself. That thing just tore the top out of a tree. Stay in the house. That's what I did. I think, no. I don't want to see it by myself. I'll see it with someone else with me, but no, I'm not doing it.
These things they're dangerous to say the least. Most of them are anyway. But like you say, when they get after somebody, it's usually to scare them or teach them a lesson, right?
Oh, if this one out here wanted me, it could have me. I bet you it's watched me many times walk outside at night, and that window's not going to stop them. There's no way that thin piece of glass is going to stop them. That wall won't stop them.
No, it definitely won't. And I've had several reports where people woke up in the middle of the night with these things standing at the foot of their bed. These things, my wife can tell you, these things can get through locked doors without unlocking the doors, because she used to work at this little country store, and every night they would come in, or every morning they had to come in early because of the duck hunters, baby?
The duck hunters and the farmers. And
the door would be locked, shut, but all their meat, all their sliced meat, deli meat would be gone. Nothing else in the store.
Only the sliced meat, not the big rolls of meat. Nothing else, just the sliced meat was gone. They didn't steal the cigarettes, the cash. Nothing else in the store was missing, just the sliced meat.
And they either had it right there or took it out without unlocking or opening that door. And they come up one morning. It was Kara, yeah. And saw it in there and called the police. Well, the police came and they didn't find anything, did they?
She seen it in the
dumpster. Who's the one that's seen it inside?
That was me.
That was you?
Yeah, and I went back to the airport and called the police. So they came and they didn't see anything. So, thank you for your package.
Yeah, so this thing had got in the store at will and could eat the meat. Now, how it get in that store without unlocking the door is a mystery. But it's very true. These things are capable of things that monkeys just can't do, man.
Oh yeah.
There's just no explaining. In my own opinion, my own experience, there is no explaining the Bigfoot with the strictly flesh and blood physical. Of course, they can be physical. They can eat, they can drink, they can leave scat, they can reproduce. But when they don't want to be there, it's funny how they just disappear to me, right? And me and my little brother back in the 80s, we were surrounded by at least 4 or 5 of these things. In a haunted cemetery. We were fishing in a lake in between 2 cemeteries, an old slave cemetery and a white man cemetery on the other side of the lake. And the place was rumored to be haunted. They called it Spook Hill, actually. Its real name was Burbanks Lake, but we got stranded on the other side of that lake. We were fishing and water moccasins everywhere. And as soon as it got really dark, we started hearing the most hellacious racket you've ever heard coming through that woods, and surrounded us. You could hear the stick breaks and the tree breaks and all of that. And I had half a jug of kerosene, and I waited to the sounds of the footsteps, and we heard nothing else and saw nothing. They didn't growl or grunt or even so much as breathe heavy that we could hear. But I'd wait till the footsteps got really close, and I'd throw some of that kerosene in the fire. And it would flare up, and we could see 50 or 60 feet easy, and there would be nothing there. And this happened several times until I ran out of kerosene, and then we were backing down to the lake with just a little stick with a little piece of fire on it, about an inch or 2 long. And I asked my brother, said, "You ready?" We thought we were going to die for sure. And we knew what it was because we'd already been through this 10 years before in Spotsville. If you Google the Spotsville monster, you can get the story of my family. But we got down to the lake, and these sounds followed us down, Chester, to the lake where there were hardly any trees. So it's my opinion that these tree knocks and wood breaks and limb breaks are done by the creatures themselves, right? So if they really did break all those limbs and trees, there could be such a thing as a Bigfoot tracker. You could track these things where they go, but lots of people call themselves trackers, right? But no one's ever tracked a Bigfoot and give us any proof that they're there. So I think they make the sounds with their own voice. I think they have Of course, I think a lot different than everybody else, but I've had 50 years to dwell on this and dwell on my own experiences and listen to other people's, tell me their experience like you, brother. And I just think that these things, if they actually did break all those limbs, that you'd be able to track these things. So never seen anyone to do that, though. I've heard lots of people say that they've killed these things. Well, it's funny, all the people that say they killed Bigfoot, they haven't had the presence of mind to take a finger or an ear, nothing, right?
Right.
And so I don't believe guns can kill these creatures, because if they could, we wouldn't have a mystery. It would have been solved in 1975 when I was 9 years old in Spotsville, Kentucky. We had a house full of people on the roof, all armed to the teeth with shotguns and high-powered rifles, and waiting for this thing to come up. And half of them didn't believe it. But when they did finally hear it, they let out a volley of shots, and it sounded like World War II, and they started screaming. A couple of them fell off the roof, knocked the ladder down. So it was the next day we go out there and we found a dead dog. Now this thing had been leaving things, actually. Wasn't just one, it was more than one, but they'd been leaving dead animals all over our property, and they were all mutilated the same way. Now, Chester, if you're a 10-foot tall gorilla and you kill a dog to eat, you can eat that dog, right? You're going to eat it all, right? You're going to need all those calories to fuel your huge bulk, right, from day to day. But these things only ate the soft tissue, the entrails, the eyeballs, and the tongues, and they left the bodies either in our fields or on our property.
Well, the entrails of an animal are actually better for you than the meat itself, because they're higher in minerals. I mean, that's why when wolves take down an animal, it goes straight, the leader gets the liver. That's where the most minerals are. That's where the most nutrient is.
Right. But if you're 8 or 10 foot tall, you're going to want all those calories, right? Not just the specific groups. And they would kill dogs from all around our farm. Now, we had 2 of the most vicious dogs you could ever want to have. And, there's 3 things you really need if you want to make it in the country. You need a good guard dog, you need a good shotgun, and you need some chickens, right? Those are the 3 things that you have to have. But our dogs, they were so mean that our family friends could not pull up into our driveway and get out of their cars unless we went out there and got the dogs, called the dogs down. But when these creatures came around, the dogs would go under our house. We had a little short piece of underpinning missing right there by the back doorsteps, and they would get through there and go under the house every time these things came around, and we'd hear their heads knocking on the floorboards at our feet, right? That's how we knew that the creatures were out there in the nighttime. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something else that they'll do, and I've had them do it out here. For deer season, I'll take, I don't use cover scents at all.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I take a work shirt and I hang it up out there where I'm going to be hunting. I leave a salt box out. I'll throw a can of corn every time I change that shirt out so that the deer get acclimated to my scent.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've gone out and I've carried a 50-pound salt and mineral block up the side of this mountain out here behind the house and put it out. I went up the next day and it was gone. It picked it up and carried it off. 50-pound salt and mineral block. And I've had people say, oh, somebody was probably walking through there and picked it up. I'm like, who in their right mind is going to pick up a $9 50-pound block of salt and carry it 2 miles over the mountain to get to civilization?
Yeah. Not going to happen.
No, not going to happen. Nope. But it picked it up and carried it off. I've had them pick them up and carry them off a few times.
Right. It's amazing what these things can do, and amazing how strong they are. And it amazes me the capabilities that they exhibit sometimes. And I tell you, it's a great mystery. And it seems to me that people don't want their mystery solved, right? Like if I sat here and told you that everything was biblical, and there is an answer to these, what these creatures are, you might not believe me. But, most people like their mysteries to stay more mysterious. But I do believe the answers are out there, brother. And all we have to do is to find the right answers, is learn to ask the right questions. Most people they have have something in mind when they get into this or as they progress through it, and they only look at the evidence that fits their paradigm, fits their point of view. Well, I try to look at everything in together. I don't just look at the Bigfoot mystery. I look at the Dogman mystery, all the Inhumanoids, Mothman. Also look at the haunted house mysteries and the UFO phenomenon, right? So I think it's all related. It's all connected. And how and why is there for people to find. But they just have to look in the right place, which is the Bible. It's all in there. And they have to ask the right questions. Now, that's my take on it all. But that's just me, you know.
Right.
A lot of people don't think like that. They've never seen anything to make them make any sense out of that type of logic. But I've seen plenty, and the good Lord has saved me from these things several times, and He's allowed me to go without fear. Anytime that I'm an outdoors person, I'm very happy, comfortable. I'm most comfortable when I'm in the woods near water. And so I've lived my life without any fear of these things, even though we went through some pretty traumatic events, right, when I was younger. I rely on the good Lord to protect me, and He always has. And, you know, if these things were just animals, hungry animals, I would have probably been eaten when I was a child. So, you know, it's a lot of things to keep in mind there when you're trying to look at this one mystery. It's all, to me, it's all unexplained phenomena. So whether the chances of you seeing a Bigfoot are very slim, right? If anyone's seen it, that's why so few of us do. But the chances of you seeing a Bigfoot while living in a haunted house and also seeing UFOs in the same area should be statistically impossible, right?
Right.
So note that it never happened yet. It's happened to me 3 different times in 3 different locations. So I have to keep my mind open when it comes to that stuff, brother.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and, you know, like I said, I don't just, you know, I'm not a naysayer about the whole cloaking thing or portal thing or whatever. I just have never experienced it. I know others have. So I don't say, no, it can't be do this. It can't do that. Nobody knows for sure. I mean, you know, except for the people that have physically seen it. And I just have not physically experienced that as of yet.
Right. Well, there's two kinds of people, brother, when it comes to Bigfoot, and that's experiencers and guessers. That's it. So the experiencers know, and the guessers, they guess. So,
oh man, I was going to tell you too. I've had house guests here, you know, a few times, and my daughter was staying here for a while, and I kept telling everybody, you know, there's something out there watching us. You know, I call it my watcher, and I was like, if you don't want to see something that might scare the crap out of you, don't look out the windows, especially at night. Well, this little girl that came over for my daughter's birthday, she was like 19, 20-year-old girl. Anyway, she come out of the room and was walking across through the kitchen. She was going to get her something to drink, and all of a sudden she froze right there in the floor, you know, right there, and she was staring at this window, and then she lost all bladder control on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she had to go get her a shower. I was like, I warn you, don't look out these windows at night. You don't know when you might see something. Well,
what did she tell you that she saw to make her do that?
She said she saw eyes in that high window over here. She said, you know, turn the lights on and there was eyes in that window and then they were gone, but it scared the hell out of her. She said they looked like they were, you know, about a foot apart.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it scared the living daylights out of her. And then my daughter's kids, they kept wanting to go in and out the door at night. And I'm like, okay, guys, look, if you don't want to be outside of this house after dark. And I took everybody out on the back patio and I shined my spotlight up the hill, up the mountains. Mm-hmm. There was a set of eyes up, you know, real high up, like 8 feet high in the air. And they all ran back in the house. Now, see, I used to have a TikTok account and I was semi-TikTok famous, but I was spending way too much time on it. So I deleted it. I don't have the video, but it was pouring down rain, and I've got a creek that goes across the front of my property and across my driveway. And when it rains real hard, it floods. But, you know, if it hadn't rained for a couple of days, there's no water in the creek. Well, I've gotten down in that creek and got rocks out and stuff. And the creek bank to me is like this, so 5 foot deep. I was out there and I had my phone on video and I was videotaping the creek with a spotlight. And I had my phone on record and something was down there in the creek. I think it's my watcher that was in there, but it stood up and its eyes were like 4 feet above that bank. So 8, 9 feet tall. And it was standing in water that was just about, I'd say the water was rushing because it was flooded over my concrete bridge in my driveway. It was flooded over that. So water in that creek had to be 4 foot deep. And I mean, just strong current, because when it goes over that bridge, if you drive through it in a car, it'll swipe your car off that bridge. So you don't cross that creek if it's over that bridge. And this thing was standing down there in that water. And I had it on video and I put it on my TikTok. And since then, I deleted my TikTok, but I had the video. And now my other phone crapped out, so I've lost that video.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
That is a shame.
But I do have aerial drone footage of one standing on the edge of the swamp. Jennifer Appleton spotted it and zoomed in on it, circled it, showed it to me. And I'm like, holy crap. So we went back out the next day and I flew my drone over it. I mean, you can't tell what it is, but there's no way for anybody to get down there to move it. The very next day it was gone. But when I flew my drone over that area, me and Billy both heard something start whooping at my drone. And of course, after I flew my drone over that area, I keep my drone low so I don't go up above the 255 feet. After you go up so high, you have to have an FCC license.
Yeah, we had to get one. Latisha and I had to get one.
I keep
to
mine
go up to 400 feet.
Yeah.
And that's the limit you can take on literally.
Well, I flew over the field and everything, got more footage of that area, and brought my drone back and landed it. And then me and Billy hit the woods. We were out in the woods, and it had to have been a gigantic commercial grade, like government grade drone. I mean, this thing was huge. You know how a small drone, I mean, it sounds pretty powerful when it takes off. This thing was big, and it was so high up that we couldn't see it, but we could hear it. It was that loud. I mean, we're talking a giant, like quadcopter or something, but it flew over us and it hovered over directly over us. And we were under a tree canopy. So this thing had like heat vision in it, but it flew in and stopped and hovered directly above us for about a half an hour. And then it took off. So I believe that the people in that area, the government, like the game wardens and police and all that, I believe they know it's there. And the interesting part is that it's a small town. So the local police department and entities or whatever, they're not going to have a $30,000, $40,000 drone. That small town's not going to have nothing like that. Where I live, I guarantee you these cops down here don't have a drone, not a single, even a mini drone. They don't have none of that stuff. Yeah. So that drone over there, that hovered over us has to be some kind of a government agency that was running that drone in that area. And it must have picked up the signal on my drone. And it's like, hey, somebody's flying a drone in our research area. And then it spots us on the heat vision and just, like I said, hovers over us for about half an hour, sees we're not really doing anything. So it leaves.
Wow.
And that was my
everything. Got such fascinating stories there, brother. Anybody, if you have any questions for Chester,
got
please.
Some questions for him.
Please put them in all caps so we can ask Chester, if you don't mind, Chester. I'd like to ask you a few questions here.
Got my reading glasses.
So there's one from Sonny. Have you seen Bigfoot's teeth when it opens his mouth to go out?
Yes. Absolutely. The one that I got face to face in that window with when I was 13, it has like the squared off humanoid teeth. This one did, but it also had what looked to be like small canines in the front, upper, and lower. But that, I don't know if all of them would have canines because we've got people that have square cut teeth, and then some of us have canines as well. Yeah. But this one did have the canines in the front, and they were short.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. You got another question. Did you say how old? Did Chester say how old he was? I'm assuming when it happened.
Okay, I was 13 years old. Well, actually, I was 12 years old because we had lived there for a year. I was 12, and my birthday being in August, it happened like right about the time I turned 13.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Kevin.
Thank you.
Good to see you tonight. I hope you're doing well.
Let's see. I got that one. All right.
I think Scott asked me if a cryptid took my knife. I think he was talking about
He
nightmare.
asked if you ever got it back.
So Scott, no, I didn't. We unfortunately no. I don't think a cryptid took my sword. Definitely not a knife. It was a sword. That was my own fault. We'd stopped in the house and to get everyone drinks, some water and some Coca-Colas, and I put it on the back of the car or the hood of the car, and just forgot about it. And we drove off, and I'm sure someone found it and took it on home with them. You know,
Wanted it worse than you did.
All right. So I have a couple other swords. So, you know, it was really a good weapon, and it was blessed by a priest. So the sentimental value was much greater than the monetary value on that weapon. But I have others. So
Sunny 11 says, "Did Bigfoot have protruding muscles like an ape?"
Muzzle. No, it did not. It more reminded me of like what a Neanderthal man would look like. It's about kind of a cross between gorilla and Neanderthal man, but it didn't have the muzzle. It was more flat of a face.
What were the lips, Chester? Do you remember seeing the lips, or were they covered by a mustache or?
Yes. Yeah, it had hair. It had facial hair, yes, but not all over. Just like right where we would.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Kev.
Let's see. Here we go. Have you seen different color eyes or eye shine?
Okay, the one that I was face to face with, its eyes were like, it had whites around the eyes, but the cornea of the eye was black. Plus, like I said, it was dark, and so it could have, how people's eyes expand whenever it's dark, so you can take in more light. That could have been it. The other one that I saw, the blonde one that took off running, I didn't get a chance to see, that much detail because it was like 2 seconds and it was gone. Yeah. So, and the eye shine, I haven't really noticed a big difference in the eye shine that I have seen. It's usually, the eyes shine back and they look kind of a white in the lights that I use. But I mean, I've also got like it's a firearm light. It's a true fire. And I mean, these things are like so bright. They're considered kind of a weapon because they will blind somebody. So it could be that my light is so bright when I shine it and get the eye shine that it's whiting out the eyes that way.
Catherine Gay wants to know what part of Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
You're talking about the haunted house?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. The house that had the murders done in it. It was kind of in the Little Rock area, but I don't exactly remember where the house was. But Little Rock, it was not like in Little Rock. It was outside of town. And I don't even remember the road it was on or if the house is still there, because I only went there like one day, stayed the night, and was gone the next. So,
okay, James Fedke, Chester, have you ever felt shockwaves in your heart or chest you could hear?
When that thing screamed at me, I sure felt that. That one that screamed at me, if a sound could break bones, that sound would be the one to do it. And I've never heard another scream like that until I get on BFRO and they have audio sounds, and there's one sound on there that, I mean, when I hear it, I get goosebumps and my eyes tear up, and it's right like that, and it just terrifies me to hear it.
Right. Have you heard the scream that Daryl Ditton, Ron Moorhead, Martin Groves, and myself recorded in LBL.
No, I have not.
Need to check that out. So I did an Aztec death scream, which is me imitating a Aztec death whistle, but only it has a lot more decibels in my voice than the whistle was able, and it could carry. And I did it 3 times, and I got 3 answers, brother, and all of them sounded exactly like I did, but they used two octaves at one time, which is an impossibility for humans anyway, right? You can only scream or sing in 1 octave at a time, but this was 2. So you need to check that out and see if that sounds anything like what you heard.
Yeah, it was okay. It was like I said, it was a screaming roar is the best way I could describe it, but it was a scream and a roar at the same time.
Yeah, right. 2 octaves.
Right. It was 2 octaves at the same time.
Right.
And like the roar, I mean, I've listened to all kinds of animal sounds and stuff like that. Now, you just take the scream part up of it, the roar itself, no animal can make that roar. I mean, there's no animal out there that can produce just the roar part of that, let alone the scream with it. You know?
Right. Well, so when I got out of the car, I had to use the bathroom. I had to relieve myself, and it was a Monday or Tuesday night where hardly anybody else in the park. And I took care of my business, and I did a couple owl calls, barred owl calls, and nothing. And I walked back to the car and stood there talking to Bubba Martin, who was driving. I said, I think I'm going to do my Aztec death stream. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you remember the video we did with Elijah and Gabby Henderson, and they had that Aztec death whistle?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what you don't know is the last 2 or 3 times that you heard that in that video, that was not the death whistle. That was me imitating it." And so I just screamed, and I'm such a great YouTuber. This thing answers us back immediately, and it's within a quarter to a half mile on our side of the river. And we all sitting there. I'm standing by the car, just dumbfounded, right? And I never once think to get my phone out and record anything. So what did I do? I screamed again. At this point, Brother Daryl gets his phone out and starts recording, and recording picks up with the second creature answering me from across the Cumberland River, which is 1 mile wide. So I screamed again, and another one answered from even further across that river. So 3. I have a good friend of mine that lives down in Tennessee, and he's a wildlife biologist and botanist, 40 years experience, right? He can name every plant and animal species in that park or any Kentucky park system by species and genus name, right? He knows. He's just extremely intelligent, and he heard that, and he said, "Barton, what you got here is something that I cannot identify. I know there's no animal in this park. I don't know of any animal that can make this sound. So you've got something that most researchers never get. That's very clear audio of an unknown animal. So it's every little bit of evidence we get, I run by him, because our opinion sometimes isn't enough, right, brother? You need somebody with a more scientifically bent point of view. And so far, we've got those screens. We got a screen capture of this something huge standing next to a tree with its eyes are about 6 inches apart. And when our flashlights hit it, they glow yellow, right? And it immediately went down from the tree to the ground and took off extremely quiet, didn't hear anything. We got some type of light at ground level that's pulsing. We don't know what that is. And just the last time we were down there, or not the last time, but a couple of times ago, we caught something peeking out around the trees at us within 20 feet. So check that out too. And this thing looks like its eyes are so bright, glowing so brightly in the flashlight. I'm surprised we did not see that. And this thing snuck up on us. It was between us and the camp and us and the women, and didn't make a sound. And it went from one tree to the next almost instantaneously. It's really, really wild. Check that out if you get a chance, brother. We get more evidence here. Yeah, that's.
You can see the nose, the mouth. I can't.
Well, you got to get it over this way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I see that.
There you go. It's got its mouth open there in that picture, but you got several screenshots of that, and it's definitely something there with opening and closing its mouth. So, any other questions for Chester, guys? We're going to start wrapping this up here. Any more questions? Put them in caps, and we'll. Chester, we thank you so much, man, for coming on and telling everybody your stories. Right?
Yeah.
Very appreciative of that.
There we go. That's the drone photo that Jennifer did. That's one standing on the edge of a swamp with my drone.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's no, I mean, you see, nobody can get into that area. So if I fly my drone over that the next day, that's supposed to still be there, and it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, brother, these things are coming out more and more, it seems, these days, and people are getting more evidence than ever before. At least I am, anyway. And the Brotherhood of the Wolf, my associates and I, which includes
Here's
Bill,
the tracks that I was telling you about. Hold on, if I can get it. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, we see it.
Now you see the footprint on top of it. That was my 220 pounds stepping right where that did. That's a lot heavier than 220 pounds to compact that sand.
Yeah.
You see the mid-tarsal break in that. I would have loved to have sand casted that, but the sand, plaster cast, but the sand was too wet. Okay. Right. Here is the drone footage the very next day with that object gone.
Wow.
It's not there.
Not there.
That's crazy.
That proves it was something standing there.
That was something standing there, and I got an overhead view of it.
Wow.
Let's see. Oh, that's a video of it. All right. Come on. Focus. There you go. That was across the field, and it was a drone shot that I got, and Jennifer spotted that looking out of the trees at us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I guess, everybody says the veil is thinning. Yeah.
I told you I had some pretty good pictures.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what I believe is happening is we're in the time of things being revealed that weren't known before, right? That's my belief, and it's called Revelations in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
So we're getting ready to learn a lot more than we know right now. But Chester, thank you so much, brother, for coming on here and telling everybody your stories. Amazing stories. You're an amazing fella, and it's so good to know you, and so appreciative of you coming in on here and telling things that you've never told anybody before but your wife. That's amazing.
Yeah, that thing that flew up the tree and went over about 60 feet and come back down. I was like, nope, I don't want no part of that. And my wife, like I said, is the only one that's heard about it until now.
So a 40-foot jump is not much different than flying, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't hear any wings flap or anything like that. It was about 20 feet ahead of me. It went straight up the tree, snapping limbs, and then come down about 40 feet behind me. So it was about 60-foot total span that it did.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it's crazy, but people find footprints. And did you find a line of those footprints, or was it just that single print?
It was just that single, because that area, it's like rock. It's gravel all the way down. And then that's the only patch of sand before you get into the creek. So whatever did that, come across that big rock gravel bar and 1 foot there and then off into the creek. And it's a shallow creek, but it's quick. So if you step in the sand in the creek, it fills it in fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But that was about a mile from the house where I go to play in the creek and fish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that blew my mind. I did try to plaster cast it, but the plaster never sat up. It stayed wet, and I was like, okay. So I shoveled plaster out of it and let it be gone with the wind.
Right. I've never tried to cast. Now, we come across a footprint or two, and then the line a couple of times, a line of prints, but I've never tried to cast any. Honestly, people have done that 10,000 times. It really doesn't prove anything. It's just a conversation piece. And
Right.
to be quite honest, brother, I don't want anything like that in my house.
I was actually going to cast it to give it to Billy as a gift, give him something neat to hang on his wall, and it didn't work out.
Oh, man.
Well, maybe next time. It's thought that counts.
Yeah.
But thanks so much, Chester. We really appreciate you, man. We're going to let you go now. I know it's probably going on 11 o'clock where you're at.
Oh, no, it's like 10.
Okay, so you're on Central Time like us.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of people have to get up early and go to work, so we try to cut it off at around 10 if we can. And
yeah.
But you're right, Scott. The Bible tells us all we need to know, and they look to the first book of the Bible for the what's. What is it? But they never think to look to the last book to figure out the why is it. But it's there. You just have to look. But Chester, thank you, brother, once again. Give your wife our regards. Hope she gets well soon. Be praying for her healing of her leg. And just stay prayed up, brother. And
absolutely
have faith that the good Lord will protect you from these things, because he can do it. He has protected me for 50 years now.
Yeah.
Almost 50 years now. So you try to be safe down there in Tennessee, and tell Billy and everybody that I said hello. And I'd like to talk to Billy sometime. I've heard Brother Daryl talk about him a lot. And
yeah, Billy's a good dude.
Yeah, seems like a real good person. But
if you want, next time I talk to Billy, I'll see if it's okay for me to give you his phone number. I'll have to give him first, but I'm sure he will.
Of course. Yeah, I would love to talk to him. And it's great to share. This is a time of sharing knowledge, right? Because decades ago, you couldn't just come out and say these things without very negative repercussions. But now,
oh yeah,
you see how easy it is to come out and say these things without losing your job or getting committed to a mental institution, right? Times have changed. So, but thanks again, brother. We really appreciate you coming here. We had a great show. Everybody loved it, and we'll talk again soon. You have my number. If you ever want to talk, you just call me up, okay?
Sure thing. And I'll see if I can't get into that computer and get all those pictures of Cuervo that have the orbs in it. If I can, then I'll have to get them over to you. Let you check.
That'd be great. That'd be great, Chester. Appreciate that, man. So you have a good night down there in Tennessee, all right? And many thanks again for coming on the show and talking to us all.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
You're welcome. It was our pleasure.
Good night.
All right. You guys have a great night.
All right.
You too, brother. Good night.
Good night.
So that was Chester Smith, guys. As you can see, he's got a lot of encounters, a lot of experiences, and we're just thankful that he chose this show to come on and tell these things too. So we're going to thank everybody now that have donated to us tonight. Donations are never expected, but they're always appreciated and used to better this channel, better the content that we provide for you guys. We do this all for you guys.
So Jenny Brown became a YouTube member.
Well,
Welcome,
hello there, Jenny. Nice to see you, hon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. Appalachian Tales of Terror, $5. Can't wait for LBL.
Thank you, brother Jimmy. Appreciate you.
Truthy Ruthie, $20 super sticker. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, sister. We love you so much.
Love you big, girl. Love you big. Let's see. Larry Fisher, $49.99. Thank you so
brother.
much, Larry.
Thanks for your generosity.
We appreciate it so much. We got the new computer. Have to get I'm waiting for the new wireless router to come in to run the new computer. So we should be up and going by tomorrow. So everybody say prayers for us, please.
Right now, if we could only access our YouTube channel from our phones.
Hopefully with the new computer, we'll be able to access the phone, but we'll see. We're
really going through
try to get a hold of YouTube, but they just don't seem to want to call nobody back. So,
right.
Kevin Murphy, thank you for the $20.
Thank you, brother Kevin.
Much.
Hope you and Dee are doing good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We'll be talking to you soon, I'm sure.
Hawk, $40. Howdy, everybody. Bart, I hope you gave Latisha a show last night. Well, we
Well,
won't talk
thank
about
you,
it.
Hawk. Yeah, we'll just keep that private. But thank you for your gift. It was a very thoughtful gift and
Yes.
pretty funny too.
Yes, absolutely. And Kevin Murphy again, thank you so much
Yeah,
for the
thank you,
$10
brother
super
Kevin.
sticker. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate everybody that comes here and sticks around and
Right.
watches the show with us. We really appreciate everything.
Thank you for sharing your evening with us and letting us share a little bit of ours with you guys. It's always great. These live streams are really just end up fantastic. You know, we never know what to expect really, but they always end up so meaningful and interesting. So hopefully, you know, people have learned something tonight.
All right. We're going to say goodnight, and we're going to send you out with the outro that I made last week. I'm still working on a new one, so just give me a little time. But until then, we'll see y'all next week.
Right, and hope to see you right here again next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central. Watch the news. We got a lot of bad things lining up and coalescing, which means trouble for this country. And so just remember, don't be scared, be prepared. Thank you, Hawk. Appreciate that. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and the only name under heaven that can protect you from the humanoids. And
Thank you, Hawk.
yes, thank you so much, brother. There's only one way to the Father, and that's through the Son. God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Be safe and treat each other as you would want to be treated.
Good night, guys. Love y'all.
See you next Wednesday.